So right now in your head, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you got rear-ended coming into work today. 1 being you just woke up from a good nap. Think internally about where your stress level is right now and give it a number. Now watch this. Deadlines. To-do lists. That person, you know who I'm talking about. That individual who they come into your office and they make you miserable. You know the 17 reasons why. You've listed it to HR at some point. You've talked to your L&D person and said, can we do training on how to deal with him? Now here's the big moment. You actually have the idea of the century, the thing that's going to change your company, and you've been given 15 minutes with the decision maker. You have to deliver it tomorrow morning. It's 8 p.m. Where's your stress level? Show of hands, how many of your stress went up? By the way, none of that's actually happening. You're sitting in a wonderful lunchroom listening to a compelling speaker. You've got food. If you need something else, get up and get it. Are there any bears in this room right now? There's a sign outside the office if you saw it coming in that says, don't feed the bear. Are there any bears? I just want to check. I just want to ground your brain right now. Are there any bears in here right now? Anyone say yes? Because if so, I get you some clinical help. You are in a totally safe space, and yet all I had to do was use particular words and reference that moment that each of you want, and your stress levels went up. What I'm about to introduce you to today is why we are all so frenzied all the time and what you can do about it. I'm going to show you the 4 places you can actually make changes. But to get there, you have to first understand where the frenzy begins. 35% of you, the very first thought you had this morning when you woke up was your smartphone. Show of hands, how many of you first thought was the smartphone? Be honest. About a third of the group, totally normal. 17% of you, it was your coffee. 13%, according to studies, it was your toothbrush. Now here's where it gets sad and why our brains are out of whack these days. Because I was already up, if you do the math, to 65% of the human population. Only 10% of the human population wakes up and thinks about their significant other. 10% is worried about love, and the other 30% is inconsequential things. How many of you woke up this morning and thought about work? And the reason you did, by the way, more hands went up than just those who said about the smartphone. Notice I didn't say first thing you did, I said first thing you think about. We're going to work on your inner life today. You thought about your smartphone, and within 5 minutes, 66% of you, according to a Deloitte study, had checked your smartphone. Within a half an hour, someone guessed the percentage. 99, wouldn't that be great? After an hour, 96% of the human population is checking their smartphones. And the other 4%, they ran out of battery overnight. And the reason this is so significant in terms of frenzy, in terms of what's going on in your stress levels and your brains, is because for you as a human being, when you wake up and you look at your smartphone and you see who wrote you and what big issues are pressing in for that very meeting with that decision maker, you're getting the same chemicals in your brain that a crack addict does on their first hit. So there's this wonderful study that UCLA did with kiddos in college and put them into an fMRI machine, which is one that sees where the brain has blood flowing to it based on activities. And so they're sitting there looking up at a screen with their Instagram account on it. And a new post has just shown up. And it starts getting like after like after like. And the DTA, the area of the brain that hooks in dopamine, that gets you high, who's got caffeine with them right now? That gets the DTA to go. But the other thing that does it is every tweet, ping, text, email, because people like me. And the moment you get that little burst of enthusiasm and liking, suddenly your brain gets high, just like you've been doing narcotics. All of you sitting here right now, if you're part of the 96%, you are crack addicts. But we use these devices as magic pills to try and get people to learn. And the problem is that as a group of addicted people, it puts our brains at a higher level of stress the moment we wake up. How many of you work less than 30 hours a week? Show of hands. Really? Because new studies are showing that, I'm just getting giggles from Dan over here. The reality is that studies are showing 25 to 35 is the optimal amount. Anybody here work less than 35 hours a week? But so what you've done in those next hours, and studies in our book Hijacked by the Brain found that you would have as many as 40% of the American population working more than 50 hours a week. So those are the same hours you used to spend on the porch, sipping lemonade, talking to your friends. If you're a parent, that's the time you spend with your kids scouting, or birthday parties, or sports, or music. It's the time you would just, get this word, do you ever just get to chill? Again, I'm giving you this long preamble about Frenzied because the problem is social media and technology. The amount that we're working. And then there's this final really interesting category, the news. Any of you look at the news today? How'd that feel? Did your stress level go up or down? Every single time we get triggered, it doesn't matter who you are. And those three factors are creating an environment where when you show up to life, your daily activity, your brain is already so stressed that all that annoying person has to do is look at you the wrong way, and you spike. You get triggered. You're suddenly in an alarm reaction that is similar to one of our troops who's been in the theater of war, coming back with post-traumatic stress disorder and having a loud sound go off in the grocery store. What do they do when that happens? They hit the floor, they jump, they have a catastrophic stress reaction. The same thing happens to you because of the madness of our regular world. What I'm going to teach you today is that you actually have a choice. You have a choice in your prep work. You have a choice in the way in which you get ready for conversations. You have a choice in conversations as to how you use your brain, and then when the shit hits the fan, you actually can do something called quick switching that will let you be the one who's in control on the outside, even though inside you might be melting. But to get there, you first have to understand about the alarm in your brain. So each of you have two tiny little almond-shaped regions in the middle part of your brain, which is the emotional center and the reward center, not the brain stem that controls eating and hunger, sexual drive, the need to sleep. It's the brain stem, by the way, that doesn't even get tweaked. If you touch a hot stove, your hand pulls away before you touch it. No thinking involved. That was your spinal cord, and at most your brain stem that took care of it. That's autonomic. You're not thinking about it. But once we enter human thought and emotion, the drivers of behavior, there's these two little regions that are technically the amygdala that we call the alarm that are actually making most of your decisions for you. Let me introduce you to the feeling inside your body. Think of the person who drives you crazy, not if they're in this room. And I want you to actually imagine their face. Got it? Oh, I'm getting such a wonderful mirror over here. She's just going like this. Because it's so painful to just think of that person. Now, by the way, that person just came in and did the annoying thing that they did. Stress level going up? By the way, that's now the person you have to present your great idea to the decision maker with. They are now your business partner on the next project. Where's your stress level? Now, where is that favorite place in your life where you know you're safe? That place where you love to go on vacation. Now, it could be in your home, it could be in your backyard, it could be your favorite coffee shop or a pub. The pub often helps. Or it could be some place that you go to retreat. Can you think of it for a second? Now let's go a little deeper. Close your eyes and actually imagine yourself in that favorite safe place. And in that safe place, someone just came with your favorite beverage. Take a sip of the beverage. Actually taste it. Now take 2 deep breaths. I'm sorry to do this, but come on back. Anybody's stress go up? Show of hands, how many people's stress went down? But nothing changed. All we did was actually go into our mind using two different parts of the brain other than the alarm. You used your memory center, which is mostly the hippocampus, but also is found in different parts of the brain. Know that when I talk about brain research today, it's really hard because all the stuff we have from fMRIs is only 20 years old. And all the data that is being gathered is really specific. It's not comprehensive. The last administration actually funded a global study of the brain because we're still at the fundamentals of what's true. But what we do know is what the parts do. And in addition to your hippocampus, you have something called the frontal lobe, the thinking center. It's part of the neocortex. It's the new part of the brain. It's what differentiates you from lizards. Elephants, dolphins, not so different. But those other little scurry creatures, they are entirely driven by their alarm and their reward center. There are two loops. The first loop is called the short loop, and it's when you are stressed. It's your alarm. It's that crazy person. And it's when your alarm pulls all the negative memories that it can from your brain to do two things. To get you out of that situation so you will be safe and not die. And in a more general situation to keep you alert. So you remember meetings, never here at C-Space, but in other places in your life where you were tired, you hadn't had your requisite dose of social media and caffeine, and you started to daydream. It was the alarm that pulled you back. You were about to be on the short loop, but it got you back into the room all of a sudden. It's not a bad thing. Remember in other situations where you were about to get in trouble and suddenly you were able to avoid the car on the highway. That's the alarm in your brain. It's the good part of the alarm, trying to bring you back to attention. How many of you woke up before your alarm clock today? That's the alarm in your brain, because you can't be a 0 on the alarm scale, you'd be dead. Even when your alarm is sleeping, even when you are sleeping, your alarm is not. It is keeping you to pay attention to the moment. The twist is it wants to keep you alert and safe, and it will keep you on the short loop for a split second to pop you back to attention. It will keep you on the short loop until you actually change the thing that needs attention. So what you do as consultants, what you do in working with teams, is you actually show them what to pay attention to by helping them engage the long loop. The long loop is all three parts of those brains talking to each other. So the best part about you as a human being is intuitively, you already know how to manage stress. What, by the way, is the best answer for managing stress in all situations? Bourbon. And the reason it works so well is that it instantly gets the reward center to send the good chemicals. The problem is the alarm in your brain is like a toddler. And 2-year-olds don't like it after they've woken up from a nap. And that bourbon or whiskey or wine or beer, who's ready for happy hour, see how the brain works? That is only quelling or giving a nap to the alarm. What you have to learn how to do today is switch from the short loop to the long loop on command. And every single one of you is possible. But to do that, you have to make sure that you know what frenzy is. So hear these definitions so that it's deep in your brain. Frenzy is officially a temporary madness. Well, what's the important word there? Temporary. Your alarm states are not the end of you. We may all live in these states too often, and when it keeps going, it then becomes post-traumatic stress disorder. It becomes chronic stress, but you don't have to stay there. Even if you're a person who has lived with anxiety and other difficult mental health issues, and I stand up here before you having had a life of that. I can't teach you this because I've always been well. I can invite you into this world because I usually wasn't. And I had to learn this for my own wellness. And the twist about it is that madness, even if it has lasted for years for you, is temporary, and it doesn't have to last into your work. Second definition of frenzy: violent, emotional, or mental agitation. What you feel inside when you have a deadline or have to present in front of the big bosses or have a creative idea that you can't get out into the world, it sends you into a flurry of an alarm reaction. It's not the end of the story. The thing about frenzy is temporary, and even more importantly, and this is what we all forget, it's just an agitation. It's not a permanent state. But lastly, this is about what we're going to fix for the rest of this time today. Frenzy is an intense, usually wild, and often disorderly, compulsive, or agitated activity. You don't have to let your alarm choose what happens next. So let's do a quick assessment. Category 1 of where you need to work on your brain so you're ready for those moments that matter and you're able to actually stay on the long loop is to be able to be ready for the moments that need you. You have to prepare in your regular life rather than doing the activities that will trigger you. So I want you to write down in your notes or use your hand to count. I'm going to give you a 5-question assessment. And I want you to answer to each of these questions if it is true or not. If it is true, 1 finger up or give yourself a slash. Make sense? 5 questions. In a perfect world, I get to give you a high five. By the time we're done, I'll show you how you can all get that high five tomorrow. Question 1 on building resilience and regular life habits. Do you meditate? Question 2. Do you exercise for 10 minutes a day? 10 minutes. Do you eat blueberries? Now, this is a metaphor. What I mean by that is healthy foods. Notice I didn't say not eat chocolate, cheeseburgers, or drinking whiskey. Fill in your favorite foods there. I said, do you eat healthy foods like blueberries? Question 4, do you take breaks? By that I mean during the day, do you actually pause every hour between meetings? Do you pause a bit in between meetings or in between doing hours and hours of work at your computer? Question 5, do you work in time blocks? So are you the kind of person who is constantly task switching, it's called, between different things unintentionally? Someone comes to your cube or to your office and knocks on the door. Do you immediately say yes and take the interruption? Or are you the kind of person who does email from 8 to 9, meetings from 9 to 11, lunch from 11 to 12, etc.? Do you work in time blocks? Let's see where the room is, and I'll scare you with a similar cohort and how much they struggled in a similar test. Who had all 5? Put your hands up if you had all 5. So you've obviously spent your life as miserable people who needed to compensate for that. You were raised in families or institutions that actually showed you these things, or these are the people that you should give all your extra work to. because they're ready for it, but you're the rarest of rare, and the reason is because no one has showed us that we have to do this. But some people figure out intuitively. Who's got 4? Show of hands. Right? Same level. 3. If you've got 3, show me the hands of who's got 3 or more. Hands up. Fantastic. Because you're not a failure if you're 2 or 1, by the way, and I'm not doing this to make you feel bad. It's that if you've already done much of these things, you can actually live with as much social media as you want and you can handle it. You can handle those tough meetings, but are you going to be ready for the crisis moments that show up? Who's at 2? Not embarrassing, you just don't it. Who's at 1? It's probably because the head of people is at 1. Well, tough. But it's education. Because it's not that there's anything wrong with Phil. Well, maybe there are things wrong with Phil. We can talk about that later. It's that we haven't actually been given the education about why these things matter. So here's the math behind these 5 things that if you do them, you show up in regular life with an alarm that is down and a long loop that is connected. Meditation in the studies came from Amishi Jha, among others who are studying mindfulness. And she found with Marines that if you do 12 minutes, it's now been reduced to 10, but 12 minutes of meditation, and that's just looking, listening, counting, breathing, doing any of the classic traditional ancient forms, your alarm, get this, will shrink. The alarm in your brain will literally, the gray matter will shrink. Now you've been told you can't change and you can't change who you are. You can literally physically change that gray matter, and it starts to grow the white matter, the neural pathways towards the activities that you care about, not the reactive ones that are trying to get you out of trouble. Exercise 10 minutes a day and it cuts stress. 20 minutes clearer thinking. Now what's vigorous exercise? It depends if you haven't gotten off the couch in years and years. If you've never been exercising, walk is enough. If you have been, that 10 minutes reminds your brain that there's no bears. So I have a startup founder I've been working with in the UK, and he said, I just don't have time to exercise. I said, what about 10 minutes? He said, of course I have 10 minutes. I said, I want it every day. I said, where do you have to run? He says, like, I have a hill outside my house. I said, please do. And he's gone from a person who is struggling with his emotional reactivity in big meetings to someone who knows that there is no bear, because if I go running each day, my brain's alignment with my life is then pure again. Blueberries, Tufts University study. They fed people huge amounts of antioxidants, and their short-term memory improved, and their balance improved. But there's an even more important side study. How many of you have rewards in your life that you look forward to every day? If you don't, this is more important than anything I'm about to teach you today. Have the piece of chocolate at the end of the day. Have the one glass of wine or beer or 3 at the end of the day. Have the person you really want to go see, not in the addictive sense, but you have to have a thing you're looking forward to. And if you do, studies have shown that people who are on a bike or running would, just by swishing sugar water, get 3 to 7% more speed or wattage just by tasting sugar. Not drinking it, not consuming it. How much more will your brain be ready for the hard stuff when it knows it can wait? Because there's a reward coming. Now don't fall into the Tiger Woods syndrome. Not all rewards are created equally. Warren's like, what are you talking about? Tiger had a habit. And it's why he was one of the best golfers in the world. It's because he had things that he would do at the end of the day that he looked forward to, and so he wasn't worried about what was happening on the golf course. Now, we're not judging Tiger, we're saying that that wasn't sustainable for his lifestyle. So you've got to find the rewards that actually matter. Dan just got it. For those of you who don't, I'll clarify later. 2 studies on breaks. If you're the kind of person who takes a break every hour, you fight cognitive fatigue. Troops who are in the turrets of Humvees or tanks get out of those spaces every hour and get put to one of the back seats where they can rest because they can't pay attention all the time. Neither can you. They're looking for danger and they can't do it. You're looking at spreadsheets. So you don't take a break, your brain is actually going to go numb. Their brains go numb because it's looking at the same environment over and over again. University of Illinois study found that if you literally just look away for 5 seconds, what we're about to teach you that's called a quick switch, at a picture of family, at something else you love, literally a quick burst of music every 20 minutes, your performance will stay the same throughout the day. People who would do the same thing for an hour would start making mistakes within 20 minutes. Lastly, if you're the kind of person who can work in time blocks, you can deal with the UC Irvine research, which found that people who didn't take the breaks and people who were getting distracted because they couldn't manage their alarms, they would lose 23.5 minutes per interruption. How many interruptions do you deal with a day? And the reason that you end up falling for it is because you're really good people, most of you. Right? You're really good people and you want to help and you want to be valuable. The problem is because your regular life brain health isn't there and you're not as resilient as you could be, you say yes in the places where you need to say no. You prioritize everyone instead of the core things that you worked on with your team to make most important. You will be absolutely like a toddler, excited by the new shiny toy that shows up. And yet the danger of that is then you end up, as we all do when we're creative and excited, with too many ideas, a lack of focus, and now your alarm realizes you're in trouble. But it doesn't stop you from doing the next category of work, which is before work or before important conversations. The next thing you can do is be mindful. To be mindful is to look or listen or count or breathe or pause or play Rochambeau. I hope we get some Rochambeau tied. Do you know what Rochambeau is? No. Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Any of these activities get your short loop to go to the long loop. So one of the rowing crews that I work with will literally have all the kids from their crazy day come to the boathouse and they get in a big circle and 2 people jump in the middle, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. And then the whole group screams, yeah! One person wins, one person loses. The person who loses becomes part of the chorus, and you play until you've got a winner. It's a mindfulness exercise. Because it just brought everyone back into the room. They're totally focused, and now their long loop is firing. But the twist is, people who teach mindfulness teach it as if there is a way or the right way. And to be mindful before work and conversations means to know how to get yourself back on the long loop. So 3 quick samples. Right now, close your eyes if you're comfy. If you don't want to close your eyes, it's okay. And just for 15 seconds now, listen to the sounds in the room. Ready? Go. Come on back. Who heard the sound? Anybody not notice it? it's possible in 15 seconds for you already go to the deep, connected place where monks and nuns who meditated for literally 10,000 hours. If you trusted me enough to just listen to the sounds in 15 seconds, your intrinsic network, autobiography, creativity, your extrinsic network, looking for bears, both on at the same time, and you're good. Because the sound comes and your alarm goes, it's just someone clicking something. It wasn't roar. There it is again, no big deal. But why is it triggering me? Because I'm in the middle of the talk, paying attention to every single thing, and you're all looking at me. Oh my God, you're looking at me. This is what happens in our world, is suddenly we're in the middle of doing something stressful and a sound pops, we get triggered, and triggers are internal and external. They're all the different things that get you on the short loop, and they don't make sense. Suddenly you're about to give a talk and you're thinking about your teacher who made fun of you in front of the whole class, and then everyone went, ooh. That sort of experience is just waiting to get you. But if you like just listening, you can pause for 5 or 10 or 15 seconds and your brain is back online. Here's a counting exercise for you. Close your eyes, and I want you to draw 1 on a whiteboard in black ink and erase it. Then 2 and erase it. Ready? Go. Even if you're not there, come on back. Could you do it? Did your stress go up or down? Whose went down? Whose went up? See, when you do mindful exercises, it may not instantly reduce your stress, but it doesn't let it go up, because now your brain is connected. And the mindfulness exercises that work for you not only will get your brain online, which doesn't mean you'll feel better, they also will allow you to turn down the stress level. So the listening exercise, I taught to a bunch of rowers at Harvard through their coach. And these guys were in the 4th boat. If you know rowing, you got 1, 2, 3, and 4 at each university. They were the worst. They hadn't won all year. And they go to the Princeton, Dartmouth, Harvard race. And all they did to practice, because they were the slowest boat off the line, was close their eyes and listen for the gun. And they just practiced the first 2 pulls after the gun. And then eventually they extended it to the first 10 pulls. They won the race by 9 seconds. They beat all the 3rd boats, most of the 2nd boats, and all those guys ended up going to nationals because they got scattered then in via seat races to the other boats. All because they learned to be mindful in just a moment. Now, who liked listening here better than counting? Who liked listening? Who liked counting? See that, about half and half? And the reason is because what's mindfully going to work for you is not going to work for your colleague. You got to find what is natural to you. So let's do a quick breathing exercise as a final example. There are so many ways to be mindful. You got to find yours to be able to step back. I'm going to take you in a box breath. You're going to follow my voice in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Take 2 breaths to cleanse. Deep breaths. Take 1 breath. Take a 2nd breath, in and out. We'll do 2 cycles. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Take 2 more deep breaths on your own time. Who is annoyed by me telling you how to breathe? Be honest, right? Now, Maggie Whiter back there, I coach her brother in golf. And she's someone I've known for a while. They're twins. By the way, he hates it when I tell him how to breathe too. And the reality is, what is mindful for one person is not going to work for others. And so for some of you, if you're doing breathing exercises, it's not the ones you got from the yoga studio. It's not the ones that you got from Headspace or Calm. Unbelievable apps, by the way, if they work. My wife does the mindful stuff from Headspace. She loves the British voice. I find it absurd, obscene, painful. Now, if it was my good friend Nick from London, I would listen to it every day. But the reason is because it's a strange Brit, not a friend like Phil and Nick, right? It's the stranger part of it that doesn't work for me. It's the foreignness of it that triggers my alarm. Where for someone else, my wife, I'm not going to introduce her to Phil and Nick, she finds it special. But this is the way your alarm is. It picks up on danger the way it does. It sees things that need your attention the way it does. It's a toddler. It's not logical. And so if you can be mindful first before work or conversations in a way that works for you, you will always show up on the long loop. Not comfy. Do I look comfy speaking in front of you today? Yeah. Natural? I'm at a 10. I'm dropping to a 7 occasionally, but I'm having to fight to not talk really fast and then have lag at that means I'm talking fast. But the twist is, I'm stepping back with pauses and slowness and looking away occasionally. Techniques I'll teach you in a second. To get my brain back online and remember what's most important next. The second thing you have to do before big conversations or work is prepare like an athlete. That means if you do go out the night before, hydrate. It means if you are going to eat the cheeseburgers, an adequate quantity of blueberries. And most importantly, you have to practice ahead of time. If you're going to go do a pitch, you should have done that pitch so many times that you can do it 100 different ways. I have given this talk hundreds of times, but because I have 45 minutes with you, not an 8-hour workshop, I'm giving you almost 8 hours worth of stuff in taste. But I wanted you to do that because you're so smart. It means I had to do more preparation. I got a chance to work with Ray Allen, who's a UConn Husky. I coach golf there. And he is the greatest jump shooter, former Boston Celtic, in the history of the game. And I interviewed him for 45 minutes in a golf cart one day about why he's the best. And what was funny is he said to me, no one's really ever asked me that. I went, that's because they're simple. Because here you are, an absolute genius of a particular skill. Why are you so great? He would go into gyms when everyone else had gone to the bar. And he's in these great auditoriums. And he would literally shoot, not to make baskets, but to jump as high as he could, every time. And when he would start sweating, you know what he would do? He'd go shoot free throws. Because his goal was to be able to jump as high as he could, as many times as he needed to, without sweating. What was his mindful move there? Free throws. So he was switching to free throws, just like I'm asking you to look or listen or count or breathe, to get back in the moment. And when he had gotten good enough, at different points in his routine, he would then turn the lights off in the auditorium and shoot baskets in the dark. And he would not stop until he could hear the swoosh. Notice the mindfulness there? The swoosh. But if you can't practice the pitch, if you can't practice setting out your ideas, if you don't know how to run the exercises or the meetings, some of those functional skills that people have called soft in the old days, they aren't soft anymore because I can tell you what the brain waves are firing when you do it the right way versus the wrong way. You've got to practice enough ahead of time that you can then improvise like Max Roach, the drummer, who said, I play things 10,000 times the right way before I figure out how to get it wrong the right way. Paraphrase. The twist is you have to know it well enough. But if you're mindful and you practice the right way, then you have this wonderful opportunity to measure your alarm ahead of time. So where is your alarm right now? Who's at a 10? 9? 8? If you were at this point after lunch, after a lullaby of a talk, after being invited to go to that beautiful place, we would literally call the ambulance for you. But if you're somewhere between a 6 or a 5 or a 4 right now, totally normal. You're listening, very exciting content. You're just trying to figure out how it applies for you. If you're at a 3 or a 2 or a 1, you didn't have enough coffee today, you're really just enjoying yourself like mom or dad reading to you and you're just glad to be here. Anybody at a 1 right now? So if you were at a 1, I would argue that you were lying. Because 1 is what happens when you wake up on the beach and you hear the seagull and you've got a half a case of Corona next to you and you're with the people you like, that's 1, like totally free of alarm. But I did have a young man who I was training in an emerging leaders program named Bob say that he was in a 1. And I put him up in front of the room. And with him up in front of the room, do you think his stress level went up?
Yes.
Not Bob. I said, Bob, you're either lying or you're Buddha. And he said, well, I'm not Buddha, though I do have a great short haircut. I said, what's your secret? He said, I just came back from Iraq. So he'd gotten habituated to being at a 10 and living there, which is what great athletes do. They get used to it. They can't do it all the time. That's why we have the off season. But you can do your best work at a 10, just not for too long because your frontal lobes will wear out. And so when he stood up in front of me and said I was at a 1, I said, you just taught me something. We can all train to stay on the long loop. We can all get comfortable with incredible amounts of pain doing those big pitches, doing the best creative work, working with the person who drives you crazy. You're capable of it before the meeting if you do this one last brain trick. Harvard Business School found that people who were going to give a talk and said, I'm not worried. If you, by the way, can give talks and not be worried, it means you have a tiny little amygdala. So with the alarm, size matters. If it's little, it's not going to be as reactive. My amygdala is huge. That's not why my wife likes me. The reason that she likes me is because I know how to deal with this constant stress that's firing in my head. But they found that people who would say, I'm nervous, did better in their presentations than the people who said, I'm fine, oh, I'm fine, nothing wrong with me. That vulnerability matters. Your alarm knows when you're lying. So does your colleague, by the way. But the people who did best named their emotion with a positive valence. They said, I'm excited. And I literally taught that trick to a former University of Connecticut golfer who played his whole life in the winter inside. He has no business competing with the big boys. And yesterday, after teaching him that trick last week down in Fort Lauderdale, he just qualified for a PGA Tour event. Isn't that fun? Yeah. Like, I just told him to do a little Harvard Business School research and suddenly I'm a PGA coach, right? But that's the way this works, is you become the best ideator in your company. When you go into the pitch and you say, I am terrified that I'm going to fail. I really want the promotion. I really want them to like me. And then as that's happening, instead of failing, you will go in, and even though you're stressed, you'll do your mindful moment next, and you'll be able to switch to the important content you want to deliver. Which gets us to the skills that you have to do in the talk. When you're actually in a conversation, when you're in a big working environment, the first thing you have to do is step back. So remember that mindfulness moment that you just picked? You can also do it in simple ways. Here are the three. I already mentioned them once. Look away. So you're in the middle of a talk. We're having a very deep conversation. What's your name? Chandler and Amanda. So both of us at the same time, right? One-way conversation. Sorry, I talk a lot. And the reality of this is, you say something that pisses me off. The first thing I can do is go, Now inside, I'm going to kill you. I'm just raging right now. I've been triggered for whatever reason. But that look away got my brain back online. And then I'm able to look back at you. I taught that to a woman in the financial services industry who had to close a $300 million deal. And all she did was look away every time she got nervous, and she closed it. One session of coaching. You can take everything we're teaching you right now and apply to your situation the techniques that work and change the way people work with you. The second thing you have to do in conversations is get Socratic. So Jim Collins is famous for Good to Great, Built to Last, and he calls himself a Socratic advisor because all he does is ask people questions. A new study was done that found in an online conversation, the person who asked 9 questions was more likable than the person who asked 4. Which question do you think you should ask first if you're going to be Socratic in a tough meeting, a conflict meeting, an alarm-raising meeting? The hard question or the easy question? You think the easy one, right? Just get everybody comfortable. Because your alarm knows that you're softballing. Their alarms know that you're avoiding the real issue. So if you come in and you ask the hard question, how are we going to apply all of this fantastic stuff that Wortmann brought in here to C-Space to all of us on a daily basis? If you ask that in a meeting, people aren't going to instantly have answers. If you go into a client and you say, hey, I know that you haven't been able to get numbers up this week. Tell me the places where those harder questions are going to change the room because their alarms know that your alarm is paying attention. And then you have to listen, technique 3, for the punchline. Most people are listening for what? To answer the question so they don't look stupid. You're not stupid, that's why you're here. And even the stupidest people in the world, 2-year-olds, like your alarm, can ask great questions. They usually start with why. But the reality is, they're still valuable. And so if you're the kind of person who can listen for the punchline, now here's the twist. Some people get the punchline at the end, some people at the beginning. This is old Aristotelian logic, inductive, deductive. Some people that you listen to, executives are the worst at this. C-suite executives are the most inductive talkers you'll ever meet. Da-da-da-da-da, me, yeah. No one in this room, of course. But the reality is, we love to talk if we're smart people. The punchline doesn't come to the end. But if you walk into their office, where should the punchline be? First. They don't have time. So talking and listening is different, but the twist is when you're listening, don't listen to come up with the right answer. Listen to what their point is. And then the fourth skill in those conversations is to be the kind of person who can paraphrase. So someone give me one paraphrase of something you've learned so far in this talk.
Eat more blueberries.
Blueberries, love it. That is so deductive. Not, we should eat blueberries. Blueberries, bravo. What else?
Look away.
Look away. You can use it all the time. What else?
Breathe.
Breathe. Notice how you're all going back to the mindful stuff? You and Buddha, all about that breathing. But these things are sticky. What about from these communication in a conversation techniques? What's one of the four things that stuck with you?
Hard question up front.
Hard question first. And all of these different things you just stated deductively. And so then they're stickier in your brain and they become deeper memory files. But as we close today, what if the shit hits the fan?
Breathe.
Always first. However you're going to be mindful, you step back first. In the book most of you are going to get today called Hijacked by Your Brain, we call it stepping back because you're stepping back from the reactive cycle and letting the long loop come on. Look away. Slow down. Pause. Should you do a game of Rochambeau in the middle of the board meeting? Maybe. Because then people would stop being so stuffy. Right? Now, if they've got fantastic suits, we won't do it. But the reality is, you have the ability with your creativity to step back. And then you have to do this technique called switching. It's called task switching when it happens unintentionally. It's called cognitive shifting when you do it on purpose. When I had you pause and then remember the coolest place you've been, that's a cognitive shift. I call it quick switching because you can get yourself from the short to the long loop in an instant. One of my CEO buddies was in New York. CEOs should never travel without an entourage. He went into a meeting with 7 other executives by himself and they started yelling at him. He paused. That was a step back. And he switched to a question. How would you like to work together today where you're not going to beat up on me and we can get something productive done? Or I can go. Talk about the guts. But what if you can say something like that to a client? You won't be able to do it if you don't step back first. They, of course, then closed the deal with one of the biggest transit systems in the world. Should he have been there by himself? No, but the shit hit the fan. With my golfers, the other thing they can do, instead of stepping back and resetting as a quick switch, is you can step back and remember. So every golfer I work with has a very defined process. They do something to make a decision. Something before they walk into the ball. Something over the ball, we know as wiggles and waggles, to get comfortable, with the ultimate goal of being blank and just swinging. Do you hear how many switches that is? We build chains of quick switches, where the first guy helped get to the PGA Tour, before he'd putt, he'd listen. Then he'd make a decision. Then he'd listen, literally for the same sound in the golf course every day. Then he'd walk into the ball, then he'd listen. Then he'd reaffirm his target, then he'd listen again, then he'd pull the trigger. Quick switch, quick switch, quick switch. If you do it constantly, you can then be the most impressive thinker, professional, and most important human being in the world. You can come to moments when shit is hitting the fan, and you can step back, and you can add something. Now, you may say, what should I add to a moment to make it better? It's already enough that I just stepped back and didn't freak out. The list that I just gave you of habits, you can add to any moment: meditation, or exercise, or blueberries, or breaks, or time blocks, or preparation, or being, or measuring, or naming, or mindfulness, or questions, or listening, or paraphrasing the good stuff that's just happened in that meeting. And you just own the moment. How do you deal with the frenzy? You've got to be the kind of people who recognize that in your regular life, you can make changes so it doesn't bother you. If that doesn't work, it's the way you prepare mindfully ahead of time. If that doesn't work, know that you can communicate in a way that brings people back to the point. And if that doesn't work, quick switch. I hope you enjoyed today learning about your alarm. It is your friend. It is not there to hurt you. It is there to make sure you don't get eaten by bears. I hope you also realize that that gift you've been given is also your superpower to show you day to day what you can focus on so the frenzy never wins. Thank you for your attention. 5 minutes for questions, or
5 minutes for questions.
5 minutes for questions. If not, I will be hanging around the rest of the day today. We're going to give you a worksheet with that list of 13 and the full outline that's going to come with summaries, and then my email will be on it too, and I'm always glad to answer this stuff. I have a simple goal in the universe, and that's to get every single brain. It's only 8 billion, don't think that's crazy, but to actually know what you now know, and to get that out into the world. So any of you I can help, I'd be glad to. Questions?
I was just trying to imagine a meeting where everybody's trying to get their point across really fast. It's moving fast. I can't imagine looking away, taking a break, taking a breath. Like, then they're on to the next topic.
Every person in the meeting, the case study is trying to get their point in, talking over everyone.
Yeah.
The way that that gets fixed initially is you frame the meeting and saying, hey, a lot of energy in the room today, we know that. So we're going to make sure that we facilitate this a bit. Bob's going to facilitate. If we need to take a break at a certain point, I'll just slow us down a little bit. We love your energy, don't stop. So that frame always works. Once it's happening, you can always go like this. Right? Your parents made funny faces at you when you were, and it's a biological thing to notice a facial expression that goes wrong. It's a researcher at Northeastern who has shown that all the different faces people make mean different things. And so what happens is by confusing people with a funny face, they now show up. So think of that as a mindful exercise. But what you have to do is actually be courageous. When it's starting, notice the alarm levels going up, and then you have to stop, pause. Should you do a yoga move in the middle of one of those meetings? Maybe. I used to say, no, we can't do that. I'm open to that as an actual solution. Now, hey, we're all losing our minds. Quick 3-minute yoga, stop, and we get back to it. But you got to use your creativity and be courageous in those moments. Another question. Yeah.
Can you explain the benefit of time blocking? I feel like, our days are just blocked by time just because of the nature of meetings. But
Right.
Without that, what's the benefit of it?
So your meetings are blocked as concise issues, but are the same kinds of meetings happening at the same time? Are you getting a block of downtime to think and process or write? Are you getting a block of time to do email? Are you getting a block of time for exercise or lunch? So what's happened in corporate America is that without knowing it, we've filled everybody's schedule so much that you can't think. So you're on the reactive cycle all the time. So what you're trying to do is bundle activities with breaks in between, even if it's just 10 minutes, to give yourself room to think. What's your name again? Heather. So the look on Heather's face right now was a deer in the headlights. Oh my God, I can't possibly do that. Incremental changes. Like find the first meeting that you can shrink from an hour to 50 minutes. Find the first day in your week where you know you can claim 2 hours for your thinking time and watch it expand. Because the reason the meetings are so messy is because everybody's trying to get the reaction out rather than the thinking and the processing in. It's a great question.
Well, what about task blocking, where you, instead of time limit, you say, I'm just going to do this. I don't know how long it'll take. I think it'll take an hour. I don't care. I'm just going to focus on this until it's done. It's done, I break, and then I can switch to the next task.
Brilliant, and you just made the stage show. So the task switching task blocking instead of time blocking, I've not heard that before, and it's wonderful. Like, get your stuff done until you finish. I was actually working with someone the other day who says, I keep getting to 80%. I'm like, why don't you finish? Someone interrupts me. So for him, we had to do time blocking, give him room to finish. If you have the power in your business or with your team to be able to say, I need to get through my tasks before I stop, again, you just made the next study. It's really good. So more.
Residuals?
Um,
On that? Yeah.
No residuals.
So you talked about how if you implement these strategies, you're going to be more mindful, less stressed, etc., be on the long. Are there also the studies that show that people are more productive when they implement these ideas?
Every single one of these ideas produces more productivity depending on what productivity is being measured. So if you're looking for more good ideas, you know you can create more ideas.
Yeah.
More good ideas depends on what that quality is. And so we know that people are more mindful who are doing, regular labor. When they get their breaks, that's why you have the 40-hour work week from Henry Ford, because 50 and 60 was actually making more mistakes, less quality. The break thing matters so much because if you don't pause, you know how you look for your keys in the morning and they're right in front of you? You can't see them because you can only focus on one thing at a time. So your ocular nerve is blocked by the actual imagination of the keys in your head. Same thing is true as work. You will get more productive when you can stay on one thing at a time. I can give you multiple studies to prove it in different ways. But the time blocks matter because you get people to have actually salient conclusions and finish what they started, and then their brain's not freaking out trying to keep attention to all this that they haven't gotten done. Because your alarm will remind you in the middle of the night. One more question.
I guess what I'm hearing is that some of the techniques you're introducing when you're in the room with people also are body language things that really are strong, like stepping back or looking away, that you're actually signaling to the partner that you're doing that. I wonder how that translates on the phone, because we spend so much time on the phone with people.
An awesome question. So I don't do coaching via video conference because I want to just be able to listen. So the most important skills in terms of using this is to always be able to wait that extra half second until the other person is done talking, or learn the magic conflict resolution technique. Oops, I'm sorry. And let them keep talking. So in the mindfulness for you on a phone call, one, prep the phone call knowing exactly the things you want to explore. Have whatever your method is of data capture there ready, and get really ready to listen through whatever that initial stream it's called in psychology is going to be, so that you're not trying to answer the question, fix the problem, be right. That's next, right? But first you're actually able to gather all the information because you prepped it, you've listened, you recorded. Now in that phone call, you either offer the content or you say, hey, this was a great 15 minutes. It'll be much more valuable for me to come back to you tomorrow. Can we do 15 then, rather than the 30 that doesn't go somewhere? But if you let your clients talk endlessly, they're going to love you. And you can give the punchlines back as to what you heard them say, they're going to love you more. They're going to hire you over and over again when you can actually show them your answers deductively having listened. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Glad to talk about it. Thank you everybody very much. I appreciate your time.